Welcome to the Third and Central podcast, the only podcast dedicated solely to the University of Louisville baseball program. This is Matt Sefcovic, and as always, I'm joined by Terry Pennington from Inside Louisville Baseball, as we are back in the saddle this week as we head into the Kentucky Derby. If I'm not mistaken, I think we're 151st this year. I know last year was a big one because it was 150, if I'm not mistaken. So we're 151 this year as the city is ramping up for that. So a lot of excitement just around the city of Louisville today. This week had 5-0 Tuesday going on today. Eastern Kentucky was in town. We'll jump into that in just a little bit and talk about the big series we had this past weekend against the Seminoles, where Louisville was just kind of hitting on all cylinders. So we'll jump into all that and catch everybody up to speed. Before we do that, Terry, I know you've been out at the ballpark and catching a ton of innings and a bunch of good quality baseball games this time of year. Been on the road a little bit, so it's probably nice to be home for at least this past weekend in this midweek before you get to head back up to South Bend. So how's everything going your way, and how have you been?
Yeah, been good. Yes, it's always nice to be home for a little while, and you know, don't get me wrong, I love traveling. I don't mind hotels or any of that stuff. I'm sure my wife prefers me to be out of the house sometimes, for sure. Enjoys her alone time with me, not messing everything up around here. But yeah, been really good. You know, you mentioned the Derby. They did some Derby trivia today at the ballpark, so you know you got to, in case anybody didn't know, you know, who was the last Triple Crown winner, or, you know, if anybody happened to not know what all three races were or what the drinks were of the week, the different days for the week. So everybody got to learn all those things at the ballpark today as they kind of get ready for the Derby this weekend.
I talk about the drinks. I've seen the posts. I'm sure you've probably seen it going around social media of, you know, the menus and the drink menus this week for the Derby. Mint juleps and a couple of the cocktails were like $22 or $23 this year. I'm like, yeah, I'll stay home and I'll make about 4 or 5 of them for less than that on my couch and be just fine instead of getting out in that mess. I've never been a horse guy. You know, the Derby stuff, it's nice because it's here local and all that, but going to the Derby, that's never been my thing. But obviously, there's a couple 100,000 people that do. They love to take this weekend, but I'll leave that to them and I'll stay home and watch baseball.
Did it the 1 year, went to the Derby the 1 year. That was enough. I love the fact that the baseball team is always out of town this weekend, so I can just get out of here, avoid all the nonsense and like all the commotion. I do have to say though, like when you were talking about the drinks and, you know, the menus and all that stuff, I'm not sure what year it was. It was within the last like 3 years or so, maybe 4, but like they gave away a cup, like a glass at the U of L at a U of L baseball game that was like had all the different U of L baseball jerseys, but they looked like jockey jerseys. Oh man, that thing is amazing. That is definitely saved in the house, and like they've done some cool stuff kind of around Derby time over at the ballpark some years.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Just kind of how the city embraces the Derby, and you know, you've got the mini marathon and the marathon, and then just all the other festivities leading up to it, and the taste of Derby and all that good stuff. So it's good for the city of Louisville. We participate in some of it, not every year, but every now and then we'll just kind of pop up there for a few things just to take in the festivities. But the Derby itself, I try to stay far away from Churchill as I possibly can, because that's just not my speed. But we spend a lot of time right across the street at Jim Patterson Stadium, which is where you've been a lot lately. My family and I, we've been up there a little bit to catch some innings and games over the past couple months as we head into the home stretch. And there's not too many opportunities left to take in home baseball games at Jim Patterson Stadium. But let's just kind of give a quick rundown where we are at this point in the season. Louisville just beat EKU tonight, so these numbers are going to reflect those changes. And obviously, these numbers are going to change as far as RPI and strength of schedule and those things, because those are fluid. They change hour by hour when games are being played. But Louisville right now is 31-13. They're 12-9 in ACC play after this weekend. D1 and Baseball America have Louisville ranked 19th. And Perfect Game finally has put Louisville in the poll and moved them all the way up to 18, which I thought was pretty impressive. You know, to go from unranked to 18, to me, that showed that, you probably didn't have them where they should have been to move them up that many spots. So nonetheless, perfect game. We're glad they're finally on board. Coaches poll, they were at 20, and the ACC, Louisville is currently tied for 7th place with Miami. In the ELO, which, Terry, that's kind of the poll that you love to look at the most. Yeah. They're up to 19. They were 23 last week, so pretty good size jump just 1 week. RPI and actually fell a couple of spots down to 21, and that's no fault to what Louisville did. They really didn't get any help from their friends that they've played throughout the year. That's just kind of how the RPI works. Why it's really a flawed system. If the teams that you previously beat, if they don't win, that hurts you. So it's just those metrics come into play. You got a team like Western that goes down to Florida International and gets swept to a pretty bad Florida International team that they shouldn't have lost the series to. That hurts us. So that's just part of it. The strength of schedule was 23 after the weekend. It has since fallen down to 29 just by playing one game against EKU. So that's just the nature of these games. It's just part of it. Everybody plays them, so everybody has to go through the growing pains of that. So that's kind of resume where we look right now. I think you have to be really pleased with everything. I think at this point in the season, coming off the stretch of schedule that we've come through, which we'll dive into that, but I think just looking at the metrics and looking at our resume, I think you really have to be happy with where this team currently stands.
Yeah, we talked a few weeks ago, when I said, if you play 500-ish baseball down the stretch in conference, you would end up, I think at that time, I'm not exactly sure what we were, but, if, you basically play, 500 down the stretch, you end up, 16, 17 wins, somewhere in there. And what I had said at the time was you're going to be right in the conversation as a host at that point, and that is still the case. I mean, you kind of look at where they're at, who they've beaten, the only thing really missing from the resume right now is a good road series win. And, a couple good opportunities, I'm sure we're going to get into it here in a little bit, but you got a good opportunity this weekend at Notre Dame. You still have a trip to Atlanta to play Georgia Tech the following weekend, who's, they've not been quite as good the last couple weeks. So, still some good road opportunities there, some good resume building chances. Obviously, you have Vanderbilt and things, but look, if this team just keeps winning series on the weekend, you don't need to feel like you have to go anywhere, and you don't. Man, it's so goofy watching people say, "Oh, we have to sweep." No, you don't. You don't have to sweep. I mean, that is some craziness that people say stuff like that. You don't need to sweep. Go up there, handle your business, win a series. You win series coming home, there's going to be June baseball in Jim Patterson Stadium.
And I think that's key for this team. Not that they can't go on the road and win. Obviously, this team, they're built for that. But we talked about it before this Florida State series. Louisville right now is 25-4 at home. They're 4-8 on the road. They can win road baseball games. I'm not super concerned about that. But if you take that 25-4 record and get to play postseason baseball at home and don't have to leave your couch, that's a lot different conversation than having to take this show on the road. So I think that's the key to it. If you can get to that, 16, 17 conference wins and, win a game or two here or there in the conference tournament and, just stack wins as much as you can to boost that resume to try to get a home series or a home regional, I think that's going to go a long way. And obviously everybody wants to play at home, but this team in particular, 25-4 strong. They obviously protect their home field. So if we can get postseason baseball here at Jim Patterson Stadium, it's going to be a damn tough place to play for anybody to come in here and win a regional. So, and that's exactly what we saw this weekend against Florida State. You've got a number 4 team in the country coming in here who's got a three-headed monster in their rotation that just all three of them are nasty. We talked about Jamie Arnold, top 1, 2, 3, probably at worst pick. I think we said last week top 5, but probably going to be a top 2 or 3 at worst. And, we ran into that buzzsaw on Friday night, and man, he is he is very, very good. And I think that's one of the most exciting things to me about Louisville when they made the step up to ACC in baseball. You get to see this talent every single weekend, just elite level, high draft picks regularly at home, whether it's our team or teams that are coming in also. So although Louisville took, a 10-2 loss from Arnold on Friday night, I think it's just really, really fun. It's really exciting. And as a baseball fan in general, it's just cool to be able to experience seeing those guys, up close and personal at a stadium like Jim Patterson Stadium, because let's face it, when they get to the big leagues, like it's a different perspective when you're watching them, play in a big stadium. So, we saw that on Friday night. He was the truth. He was the real deal. 7 2/3. He struck out 11. Jake Monroe was able to tag him for one, which I thought that was big for Jake. And just his progression and his draft stock and what that looks like. The guy, when you've got guys there, scouts looking at Jamie Arnold, and you see a dude like Monroe take him deep, they don't remember, or they don't forget that stuff, right? That's big for his stock. So Louisville just wasn't able to get a whole lot going, but that's been everybody that's played against Jamie Arnold this year. I mean, his ERA was 2.3 something, if I'm not mistaken, coming into the weekend. I mean, the dude's just the real deal, and no Patrick Forbes for Louisville for the second weekend in a row. So, trying to piece the staff together, just picking up those pieces without him and Detmer still. So, just tough Friday night, but good thing was Saturday and Sunday were coming. But Friday was just one of those ones you tip your hat and just say, hey, you had that dude that night, and let him take that W.
Yeah, just to echo what you were saying, especially at the beginning, I love the idea that we get to see some of these dudes, whether it's Arnold this year, a couple years ago, we had Rhett Lauder come in and bring the long curls in and just dominate us on a Friday night. Or I know it wasn't at home, but last year you get Burns out there at Wake. I mean, there's so many dudes in this conference. And look, we've got one of them, right? I mean, I'm sure when we roll into town, there are people that are like, ooh, Patrick Forbes, you know what I'm saying? I mean, we take that for granted, right? Because we get to see him every Friday. But when we roll into some other people's stadiums, I think, there are people that, we get to see, Patrick Forbes, he's hit 100 on the gun earlier this year. Or, we get to see, Lucas Moore, he's, swiped this many bags, or, Zion Rose, or, any of these guys. So, it was a special performance. I mean, there's, talking to Dan after the game, he said exactly what you said. Sometimes you just tip your cap to the guy and say, hey, you were better than us tonight. And they were. And, sometimes there's, a little bit more going on to a game. Sometimes the other team's just better than you are that day. And that was one of those days. Unfortunately, I think it kind of overshadowed the fact that I thought Ethan Eberle threw really well. He unfortunately, when Pike gets hurt on that ball, that ends up being an inside the park homer, or scored that way. They get 3 runs on that one play, and you kind of are behind the 8 ball a little bit early, right? And then, kind of just knocks you out of the groove a little bit, and so that was unfortunate because you fall behind on kind of just a fluky play. And they had already scored. I think they were going to probably get a run or maybe 2 that inning. But, fall behind 4-0 right away was a tough way to start. But, again, just really impressed with Eberle. I think it was 98 pitches. So to see him just continue to just, stretch out his outings is really big for this team, coming down the stretch as he continues to get more and more comfortable in that starting role on a weekend. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. He's never going to start a game the rest of his college career matched up against a better pitcher than he did on Friday night. And I don't care who it's against, because Jamie Arnold is that good. So, whatever the nerves were or whatever it was, if you're feeling them, about that type of matchup, you're, kind of, across the stat line from that guy. It's never going to be any crazier than that. So, tip of the cap to Ethan. I thought he really battled, especially after, the way the game started. And, just Arnold dominated us. And that was really all there was to it. And, the fortunate thing about baseball is it's a 10-2 game, but it only counts as one win. And, you know, to win a series, they got to get you one of the other days, and that didn't happen. So that was that was kind of the best. You know, again, like you said, great to see, fun to see Arnold. I love that stuff like you do. You know, I love the idea of getting to go see Canarella you know, the week before, things like that. So, you know, anytime you're playing in the ACC, there's likely to be somebody on the other team that you know, you can get excited about seeing. So, that's what's special about playing in this conference. Like you said, just the move to this, you know, to play ACC baseball has been great from that standpoint as well. And just also just elevating the level of Louisville's program to show like, look, when we're, you know, when they're winning games and they're winning conference championships at this level, you know, that's how they've, you know, established the type of reputation that they've established. You know, it's really, everyone knew that it was a good program, but once they started winning conference championships and things in the ACC, it elevates you to another level.
Yeah, and you know, you talked about Eberle a little bit, and to kind of echo that, you know, he had kind of the similar performance in at Clemson the weekend before, and to be thrown into, you know, the number 3 team in the country, followed that by the number 4 team in the country, and have, you know, the Clemson outing, he was over 4, I think, and only gave up a run. And then to come back and battle the way he did, like you said, and get stretched out in the 90s against Florida State, it's pretty impressive. And, you know, the coaches to have the confidence to put him out there, I think shows a lot about Everly. And we've talked about him a handful of times recently. So I think just his future is really, really bright. And, you know, with some of the injuries that we've seen this year, him being able to step in and take that role and chew up some of those innings, that's big, because when something like that happens, you really need a guy that you don't expect to fill that void and chew some of those innings up. So Ethan has done a tremendous job of doing just that. So then we flip the page to Saturday, and man, that was a fun game. I think Coach McDonald or Snyder, whoever came up with the game plan for Saturday, you could tell early and often what the game plan was, and it was to run. It seemed like anytime we had a base runner, they were just going. Louisville set a program record with 14 stolen bases. Florida State jumped out, scored the first 4 runs of the game, but then Louisville responded by scoring the final 9, in most part due to just how aggressive they were. I mean, it was nonstop. And I think what was most exciting to me about this game was how contagious the hitting was. It just seemed like they were hitting in clusters. I think the 6th, 7th, and 8th inning, they put up crooked numbers in each innings there. And, you know, you fall behind 4-0, but we've talked about all year about this team is they don't care. That's, you know, 4 runs to them is nothing. I mean, they can score 4 in the bottom of the 9th. That's not what we want to do. Like, that's not our game plan, but they can. But they just continued to battle. Like I said, the 14 stolen bases, super exciting game offensively. Justin West again threw 2 scoreless. Schweitzer score 2 2/3. I think there were just a lot of really good things that happened in that game. And it was, as a fan, from a fan standpoint, it was just a really exciting game. And I mean, Lucas Moore, we could talk about him every single game, when we get behind the microphone, but he's just so electric. You know, he's one of those guys that if you're the opposing team, he's probably the most annoying baseball player in the history of the earth. But just because the way he plays the game and how aggressive he is, and you just can't get him out. I mean, if he's 34 of 35 this year, I think, on stolen bases. I mean, he's all over the place. But he had 4 stolen bases. Zion Rose had 4. Alisea had 2. Eddie King Jr. had 2. Lippy had 1, and Neighbors had 1. That's just insane numbers. As Louisville evened up the series with a 9-4 win over Florida State on Saturday.
Yeah, so much to talk about on Saturday. Like, it just was, you know, it seemed like, you know, like you said, you fall down, you know, 4-0, and I don't want to say that you're not worried, but you do know this team has it in them, right? But at the same time, man, Florida State's got that pitching staff, right? And so you're kind of thinking like you're you're a little nervous at the same time. But to echo what you said about Lucas Moore, and I'm sure we'll talk about him a little bit more when we talk about Sunday's game for sure. But the we've talked on here before about the joy that he plays baseball with. I'm sure Lucas has had a bad day at some point in his life, but the way he plays baseball, I mean, that dude just exudes joy when he plays. He seems like he's always in a good mood. He's always happy after the game. I mean, like, just kind of like, seems like just, he plays loose. And I think that is contagious. You remarked about the hitting being contagious, and obviously, like you said, with the scout on, that they were going to be able to run. I mean, that was absolutely insane. Just, anytime you wanted a bag, it was there. Zion had the 4. Lucas had the 4. Look, Eddie King's still not feeling 100%. He's got 2. I mean, goodness sake, if Eddie's stealing bait, that there's, if Eddie's got the green light out there, that they've obviously seen something that they can, take advantage of. So as he continues to try to get healthier and healthier. So, the pitching too, talking to Dan after the game, with the way that the rest of the weekend unfolded, I don't think we've talked about him multiple times on here, especially over the last month. I don't think I could ever overstate how good Jake Schweitzer has been and what he has meant to the way this team has performed the last few weeks. The kid just gets weak contact outs or it's a strikeout. I mean, someone's going to roll over on one. It's going to be a ground ball or he's, that slider, you can't, I mean, he's so good. I think his ERA now, even after today, has dropped under 2. His whip is down somewhere around 0.9 or under. I mean, the kid is outstanding and it's freed Dan up to be able to do some different things. So they've talked about wanting to figure out ways to get Tucker more innings. That's the way, by finding another piece at the back end. And so, you never know who it's going to be, right? You never know what kid is it going to be that takes that step, especially when they come in as freshmen, because it's kind of unexpected. And so to be able to get this type of pitching performance from some of these young kids, we talked about Eberle, talk about Schweitzer. I mean, these kids are eating up big innings during the week. I mean, it's, Eberle's getting starts on the weekend. Schweitzer's getting, 4-ish innings a week, and he's getting them in high leverage situations. And it doesn't matter. Is it on the road? You need 2+ at Clemson? He's got you. You need 2+ for a W against Florida State? No problem. You're getting a little bit of a jam today? He's got it. I mean, there's, and it's the confidence that these kids get from getting big outs, and you can just see it build where now they know when they step on the mound, they can do it. They have it. And man, it means the world to this team to add these guys, especially with some injuries. Patrick for a little bit. You got Demers, obviously, he's been down. Maybe some other guys, have been able to fill in some different roles. So now Tucker gets a little bit more work. Can we figure out how to use Wyatt a little bit different? Cutts has been absolutely outstanding the last month. I mean, this pitching staff is coming around, man. I'm really excited about what these guys have been doing. They've been getting a lot of production from a lot of different guys. You talked about West. I mean, you could just go on down the line of guy after guy after guy that's stepping up as, we get, we're pushing into May here. It's crunch time. It's time to win championships. It's time to win trophies. And, man, this staff is trending in the right direction. I'm pumped up about it.
I think one of the most exciting things to me about it is I don't think we've reached our full potential with the staff either. You've got some guys that are hurt. Like you said, you've got some freshmen that are still learning. They're still, that confidence is still growing. The first couple of times you go out there, you're just trying to get a feel for it. It's a little bit different. It's on a bigger stage. There's more people in the stands. The lights are brighter. Now you're at the point in the season where that confidence just continues to grow and continues to build. I think we talked about Schweitzer quite a bit. Use him as an example. I think he's only given up a handful of runs all year, and I think 3 of them were in his first outing. right? You take that game out of the equation, and those numbers that are already pretty microscopic suddenly get much smaller than what they are. That 2 ERA becomes a 1 ERA because you take his first collegiate outing out of the equation. So I think that's what's the most exciting thing to me is I don't think we're as good now as we're going to be in a couple of weeks or in a month. And we're just going to continue to get better as the confidence of the staff grows. And hopefully some of these arms that we haven't seen recently may be able to get back into the equation as well. So with the addition of that and these arms improving as the season goes on, this is a really good baseball team. And we'll talk about that here in a few minutes, kind of maybe some expectations. But, I mean, this team is they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I can promise you that no one is going to want to see Louisville as a team that's in their regional when the postseason field is announced. So let's talk about Sunday because, man, Saturday was fun, but Sunday was an absolute blast. Louisville walked off the number 4 team in the country to win the series 14-2 in 7 innings. But how they did it, I think, was even more exciting. So let's kind of run through that. And start off, Tucker Biven gets his start on the mound. You mentioned earlier, the staff's been trying to figure out how do we get Tucker more innings, and here's a way, put him on the mound on a Sunday rubber game against the number 4 team in the country at your place, get him some confidence. So they throw Tucker out there. He throws up a 0 in the first, and then in the bottom of the first inning, it was just a home run derby. We had 5 runs before Florida State even recorded an out. Lucas Moore hit one, Rose hit one, and Monroe walked, and then Eddie King Jr. hit one. So it's 5-0 before you blink. And this is against a pitcher that I think he had an ERA in the 3s, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, this isn't a scrub that Florida State's just throwing up there. This is their Sunday dude that's won a bunch of baseball games this year. So, you start thinking about, okay, you got a 5-0 lead on Sunday. You feel pretty confident on the mound today. Tucker's out there, and everything just really fell into place. He was able to throw a couple. Schlageter was able to come in, and, man, he was just tough as nails again. Just another guy that you can't say enough about right now. He had a rough go against Kentucky in the midweek. It's part of it. It's baseball, right? And I think Coach Mack even talked about that after the game, throw him back out there for a couple innings, and he did what he does. Brennan Cutts, I don't think we talk about him on here enough for how he's been throwing lately. And that I think Coach Mack mentioned to you a couple weeks ago, they really like him in that kind of 2 to 3 inning, middle reliever type role, and he has settled into that like very, very nicely. And when we've got those bridge innings to get to a closer, or even leave him in to finish it off, we could see that too. Cutts has been just tough lately, and he seems like he's getting better as the season goes on. So Louisville's got a big lead, get down into the bottom of the 7th inning, and put up a 7 spot thanks to a large part of Lucas Moore's second home run of the game, which was a grand slam that curled right in the right field foul pole. He kind of watched it for a minute. He said he was watching to make sure it didn't go foul, but I think he was watching it a little bit. But he's allowed to do that. If you had a walk-off grand slam, it's your second of the game. I think you've earned that. And then he gave him a little tomahawk as he was coming around third. So love to see the fire from Lucas. But man, just a big time game, a big time moment that Louisville really stood up and answered the call and responded. And it was so good to see after, like we talked about, Jamie Arnold. He did what he did on Friday, and they talked it. They talked that talk while they were out there in that win on Friday night. So it was good to see us respond and give it back to them after we won the series in dramatic run rule fashion on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I love the idea of using Tucker, if you want to call it an opener or whatever you want to call it, and frame it a certain way. Obviously he's not going to be able to, his arm isn't ready for him to go, 5, 6, 7 innings or anything like that. But the way that he goes about his business, like his mentality, in that spot against that team, perfect guy to throw out there on Sunday afternoon. Bulldog mentality. If he walks a guy, if he gives up a hit, he's right back to the next guy. Tucker's not one of those guys that like carries it, that carries too much over me. He's ready for the next dude. Like he wants that next guy in so he can get that next out. And so I think he got a couple double plays to get himself out of, a little trouble. And, like you said in the first inning, it was off to the races. Man, Jim Patterson was rocking in that first inning. Obviously, Lucas gets his third homer of the year right away. You talked about Lucas going around at the end of the game, giving the tomahawk chop. When Zion hit that ball that may still not have landed yet in the first inning down that left field line, he backed up on that thing. Now, it's the second time this year that I've seen him back up like that when he just absolutely hammers a baseball down the line. And it reminds me of Barry Bonds, and that's why I like it so much, because that's one of my favorite baseball players of all time. Just the way he, when you get one, look, man, it's okay to watch it and style it a little bit. I love that. Now, I know that, I've talked to a couple guys before, and they've said, Coach Mack has told them, look, if you're going to be doing stuff like that, you better be able to back that stuff up. I don't think that's Coach Mack's favorite idea. I don't think he'd like you to do it on everyone. But I think when you hit one to the moon, it's okay. And, when Zion hit that one, I love to watch him back up and just hold the bat. Just watch it a little bit, admire your work. So, you get off to that 5-0 lead. You feel really good. And the crazy part is, I don't think they got another hit till the 6th inning. Florida State, man, they settled right in. And, were able to kind of find their way back a little bit. The bats were silenced there. Yeah, there was no hits again till the 6th inning. And so, you flip it obviously to the final inning. And it was just so fun to be in the ballpark on Sunday with, like I said, the crowd was electric. You got a top 5 team in there. Lucas hits the walk-off. That just crap. There's a great crowd, by the way. Shout out to the fans who showed up. The weather's getting better. People are starting to come back out again, bark at the park, get some dogs out there. The berm was a little more full on Sunday, so that was good. And, with the way Lucas, yeah, he looked and admired you, right? He did tell us that he was, oh, no, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, that's fine. If you did, you did. If you didn't, you did. It's all good. Either way, he gave the tomahawk chop, so it's fine. But heck of a birthday weekend for Lucas. So shout out to Lucas for, turning 20 on Saturday. Swipes 4 bags on his birthday, turns around, hits 2 bombs the next day. So also real quick apology, because I think that I had mentioned on here before that Lucas had not had any homers prior to these ones this year. So he did have a few in high school, so that's my bad. So just need to quick correct myself. I don't want to tell anybody anything wrong there, but he added to the total for sure on Sunday. Man, just there's Dan has talked about does he have the tools in his toolbox? He has more tools, and he's continued to show those off. Right? Just the stolen bases are insane. And, he was able to do a really good job swiping bags last year, but you really saw what he could do in the summer in the Northwoods League, where he was unstoppable. And he's been unstoppable again this year. He got thrown out one time. I'm telling you, he was so under the weather at Clemson. They can take credit for throwing him out if they want to, but my guy's running out there on like 50% battery life on that Saturday down there. So, congrats on getting him when he's, under the weather. But other than that, you're not getting him. Just period. And so the energy and, the enthusiasm that he brings and able to jumpstart the lineup. Can you imagine how fun it is for Zion? He's talked about it throughout the year to be able to hit behind Moore and Alisea. That's why last year he hit for a higher average, Zion did, than he is this year. but his numbers as far as RBI, as far as extra base hits, those have exceeded his freshman numbers. He's been over those for over 2 weeks already, because he's able to hit behind these other table setters. You take Zion out of the leadoff role from last year, stick him in the 3-hole. You got him protected him back with, guys like you've got Pike, you've got Monroe, you've got King, you've got Davis. There's no holes in there. So, this offense is unbelievable. It was on full display on Sunday. Again, another national TV game. The boys are 6-0 on national TV this year. I think there's 3 or 4 left, I believe, on the schedule. I know, obviously, Notre Dame this week. You got Vanderbilt. So, there's, I think there's definitely one at Georgia Tech on Saturday, and I believe the final game of the year with Wake is a national TV game as well. So,
It is.
There's more opportunities, but when the lights are on, the boys have shown out, and man, they had it on full display on Sunday. That was a blast.
And I think you talk about Zion, just to kind of circle back to that a little bit, and you talk about how the batting average have dipped, but everything else has increased this year, and it's been talked about. He's being behind guys like Alisea and being behind guys like Lucas Moore. You got to take pitches because you've got to allow them to steal bases to get in scoring position. So you may have to spit on a fastball that you want to drive, right? But it's worth it to let that one go by, take the strike, to let your teammate get to second or let your teammate get to third. So all you've got to do is hit a sac fly or a single scores them. So, he's not able to hit the best pitch that he sees every at bat. So you're going to see the batting average numbers come down a little bit because he's not getting to take his best swings at the best pitches. But I think the professional approach that he's taking shows that he has the potential and the ability to be a big league professional hitter because he's showing that maturity already as a sophomore in college. Man, I think the growth that you're seeing in Zion, if you don't just look at box scores, if you don't just look at numbers from last year to this year, he's taken tremendous strides from year 1 to year 2, and I think that's going to play in his favor for a long-term career because he's already got that mindset that sometimes it takes guys a long time to get because they don't want to spoil pitches like that. But when you've got a sophomore in college that's already willing and able to do that, I think that shows a lot of growth, and that's going to bode very well for him in the future. So before we kind of flip the page on this weekend, I think some final thoughts, and then I'll let you kind of talk about any final thoughts you have. I think anybody that was able to see this weekend or kind of see what they've been able to do, I think you have to be bullish on this Louisville team right now, right? Like, you just went through just literally hell of a schedule. If you ever worked retail or big box store, in my past life I did, and I worked at Lowe's, and we had a period of the year that we called 100 days of hell because those 100 days we were busier than the rest of the year combined, right? And when you look at Louisville's schedule, it's like this was their 100 days of hell, and we made it through it much better than we did going into it, right? Like, we're coming out the other side a much better baseball team. We're ranked 18th, 19th, 20th, depending on what poll you look at, which is kind of where we were before this started. But if you don't compete like we did in those couple weeks through the season, this team could easily be unranked right now because there's not many teams that are battle tested to get through that type of schedule. And Louisville did, and look where they are now. They're much stronger right now than they were before this 3-week period ended. And I think that sets us up for a really successful final 3 weeks of the season, heading into the postseason. And I'm super excited about where we are right now and where this team is headed for the final month.
When we started talking about, when we had our first episode for the season, kind of, getting ready as we were, getting ready for the season to start down in Arlington, I have been so high on this year's team. And even for the last 2 years, looking at this is the year as guys like Forbes get into that draft year, they're now upperclassmen. guys like that, you see, okay, yeah, Detmers, maybe he's going to take some lumps his freshman year. Everybody does, right? But he's going to come back better, and he did. Now, he's been hurt for sure. But think about the way that this team has overcome so many different obstacles thrown their way. I mean, obviously, yes, the schedule has been crazy the last 2 to 3 weeks. Who's hotter in the country than NC State right now? Anyone? I mean, Texas maybe. But outside of that, NC State's playing as good as anybody. Clemson, NC State got them. Take out the NC State weekend. Would they have 6 losses the whole year before that?
Yeah.
7, I think we gave them their 7th loss. Florida State rolls in. 2 top 5 teams, Kentucky twice, NC State. It's been Western, who is no joke, obviously. They've proven that as over the course of the year. It's been nonstop for the last month, and this team has done more than tread water in this time frame while dealing with, we're down 2 catchers, down your 1 and 2 starter. You just lost your starting right fielder. Your shortstop's been out, and in and out, and had to bat down in the lineup and different things like that while he tries to get healthy. Man, it doesn't matter what you throw at these kids. They're so resilient. And I just like you, could not be more excited about what's to come for these kids these next 2 months. It's all on the table for them, for real. If you want that, you want to wait all the way till quarterfinal day, in Durham in a few weeks at the ACC tournament, it's there for the taking. You want just the bye to the quarterfinals, that's right on the table. Go out and win series. You want to play home baseball in June? Right there for you. You want to make it to Omaha? This team is more than capable. This offense, it doesn't matter. Look, Jamie Arnold dominated us. That's fine. But if you saw Florida State in a super, you already know. You already know. We just handled a pitching staff that's as good as any in America. And so the opportunity for these kids to do something special this year, to put a 2025 up on that wall on the College World Series banner, it's out there, man. This team is capable, and I got to be honest with you, man. He takes some heat on social media from a bunch of people who don't have a single clue what they're talking about. But, hat tip to Roger Williams for real, for the way that he's developing this pitching staff. Because how many other teams are able to sustain the way Louisville has while losing their front 2 pitchers? It's been absolutely incredible. We talked about Eberle. We talked about Schweitzer. Bivens been a little up and down, but he's been out on the other side, right? He's been a lot better. Brendan Cutts, I'm sure we're going to talk about him in a minute when we talk about this EKU game. His last month has been absolutely outstanding. You take away that inning when he sat on the bench for like 30 to 35 minutes while Louisville put up, 9 runs or whatever it was against NC State before he had to come back out. You take away that inning when he came back out, I don't think he's allowed a run in a month. And so it's just like the way that it's all coming together at the right time. Look, man, you talked about it earlier. I think there's 5 more home games. I said it. I interrupted you last week and said, get your butts to the ballpark. I mean it for real. Get to the ballpark the next few weeks when these guys have home games. You got a chance to see them at home against Vanderbilt. Huge matchup. Play for the Barrel. Get to the ballpark. Pack that place. You get the Bellarmine game at home. You want to come out and hopefully see a short gate. It's Bark at the Park. Bring your dog. Get out there. Should be good weather. Final weekend of the season, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Get out there, man. These kids deserve the support from everybody. Like, they have more than earned it with their play on the field this year. 31-13. Man, this is a team that can go do something, man. Get to the ballpark before June and support these kids.
Yeah, we've talked about. I think the makeup of this team is super special. I tweeted, kind of piggyback what you said. I tweeted after the game on Sunday. It's like Louisville just won a series against the number 4 team in the country without their Friday night starter, their Saturday night starter, their starting catcher who is a draft pick, their backup catcher, and their right fielder, like you said, got hurt in the first inning on Friday night. And they won a series against one of the top 5 teams in the country. And that just speaks to the depth of this roster. And like you talked about with Roger Williams, like down your 2 dudes that are supposed to be your Friday and Saturday guy, and you're able to replace them and be in the position where we are as we head into May. It's pretty impressive. And I think this, like I said earlier, I don't think we've reached our ceiling. I think there's going to be a lot of postseason baseball played for Louisville this year. And I'm really excited about where we are heading into the home stretch of this schedule as we kind of see what this team's going to be about as we approach Selection Monday. Because I think this team can get into, we're in the host conversation now, right? But I think we can firmly cement ourselves into that conversation and be one of the host teams if we just continue to play the baseball that we're playing right now. We don't have to do anything special. Like, I think that's one thing that's really important. This team doesn't have to go out. You don't need 8 innings from your starter. You don't have to go out and hit 8 home runs to win a baseball game, because the balance of this team has been so good that if we're not hitting, the pitching has stepped up and they can limit the opposition so they don't have to score as many runs. If the hitting explodes, the pitching has still been there. I think that's what's most exciting about this team is we haven't tapped into our full potential, and you've got all facets of the game, all 3, the pitching, defense, and the offense right now are really clicking on all cylinders.
I know that for some fans, like there are some things that happen, from game to game. We've talked about this before, that this isn't the type of sport that you can just like ride or die every game with. And if you are doing that, you probably need some sort of blood pressure medication or something like that, because that is insanity to me. But like, look, would you have liked to see a better performance at UK? Of course. Would you have hoped, for a little bit better, on the mound at NC State? Yes, of course. But if you can't look at this team and see how they've come back from those things and the way they've pitched in every other game since then, I can't help you. I mean, and you need help, actually. So, there's no way around it. I mean, I laugh every time, and I know that I shouldn't, maybe I shouldn't say anything about this, but like, for some fans, man, like the way people hop on Twitter or whatever and like start posting things underneath the baseball count when they lose a game versus the way no one says anything when they win a game drives me absolutely insane. Like, get your life together. If that's what you think you need to do is talk some type of trash about something you clearly know nothing about because you probably read a box score or just saw the score or whatever it may be. Look, man, if you're some huge baseball donor or something like that to the Dugout Club, or you're out there every game or whatever, and you're supporting, and for some odd reason you feel like you need to say something like that, then I guess. But I know none of you are doing that. So, because I'm pretty sure I know everybody who comes to the ballpark all the time. So, get your lives together. Be a supportive fan for these kids. I said it earlier. Why aren't you as excited when they win as you are down when they lose? It makes no sense to me. I can't imagine what kind of miserable lives y'all have when you are just doing that stuff. And I could go on about this for like 5 to 10 minutes probably of some of you guys who just have to get it together. But I'm pumped up about the team. Y'all should be pumped up about the team too. I know Matt's pumped about it. And let me tell you something, man. These kids are pumped up about it because they know there's an opportunity out there. I'm excited. I think they can, like I said, everything's on the table for them. And they have more than enough to be able to achieve those things, much like you just said, man. They don't have to do anything extra. Just be them. That's it. Just be them. Get ahead in counts. Play defense behind them. the bats are going to take care of themselves. They do all year. Is there going to be an occasional game or two? Sure, of course, it's baseball. Do the other things that you need to do, like we've been talking about all year. This team can achieve all their goals.
Yeah. No, I think you're 100% spot on. I think you and I are both high on where we are right now, and I don't see that changing over the next 3 weeks of the season because I think just the way this team, the buildup of the roster, how they continue to perform under pressure, there's not many gaps in this roster. I mean, if you look up and down, you know, we talk on here about, you know, not 1 through 9, we talk 1 through 15 is, you know, kind of the phrase we use. You look 1 through 15, there's not many gaps, and the bullpen is becoming that way too. So I really am pumped about what the postseason is going to look like this team because, man, I'm telling you, this is going to be a scary team come June. So. But before we head over to talk about EKU, Terry, one last thing.
Yeah, I wanted to say again, I don't think I mentioned him, and I did want to make sure I mentioned Michael Lippy in the weekend he had because he was kind of forced into duty there, you know, when Pipe goes down. And, you know, it's got to be extremely hard to stay ready when you've kind of, you know, Dan talked a lot at the beginning of the year about having 5 starting outfielders, kind of the way he put it. Obviously, Eddie gets dinged up, and you know, it's kind of the way the year has gone, the way the rotations have worked. You know, Lippy didn't really find himself getting those consistent at-bats. Man, you can tell the kid stayed ready. He stayed active, stayed, you know, mentally tough, continued to do his work in the cage. You know, I mean, I get there just about every game in time to watch batting practice. I mean, it's a professional approach. You know, he's in there getting after it. And, I mean, he's a great athlete. We've all seen that. And, you know, as he continues, what a big confidence builder for him because, I mean, he's going to be playing out there just about every day now. And so as he continues to get consistent at-bats, consistent reps in the outfield, you know, the confidence is only going to continue to grow. So I just want, you know, he had a couple really nice games on the weekend, and I don't think I said anything about it. And I want to make sure I said something about Michael Lipp because that's a really tough thing to stay in the fight when you're not getting those consistent chances. And you can tell who does the work when, you know, I've said on here before that the way Dan says it is, are you ready to get on the bus when it pulls up to your stop? Lippy was ready, man. And I mean, I just really happy for him as a kid who's stuck around. Obviously, maybe he could have gone, you know, if he wanted to hop in the portal and go play somewhere consistent. I'm sure he had, you know, it would have had more than a few, you know, opportunities out there for him, but stuck around. And man, just so happy for him that, you know, when he got his chance, he was ready to go.
I'm glad you mentioned him because the performance that he, you know, put up this weekend was, like you said, just impressive to be able to come off the bench like that in a situation where you don't think you're going to be put in the game, right? Like it's not like they were like, hey, next inning, you're going to pinch hit. Go ahead and start getting loose. No, it was like, hey, he's hurt. You're in the game now. And that's tough to do. So I'm glad you mentioned him. I also think it's easy to skip over some of these guys because there's so many of them, right? There's so many that are performing that it is easy sometimes to not mention them, even though somebody does have a really good weekend. It's just so challenging. So I'm glad you brought him up because what he was able to do this weekend and kind of fill that void with an injured teammate, that's hard to do anyways. You know, the emotions are high. They're kind of all over the place. You're excited to be in, but you're sad for your teammate. Like you're mentally, you're all over the place. But Lippy really, really stepped up. Excited to see that from a guy like him. So let's hop over to the EKU game. It took place tonight. I think we should officially call April 29th, 2025 as Bayram Hot Day going forward because, man, what a game he had against EKU on Tuesday. 3 for 4, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, and 2 runs from the Marist transfer. Just a heck of a game. I think he came into the game against EKU with 1 home run all season long. And then now he's got 3. So he hit 2 tonight. So just excited to see it. Again, same thing you just talked about with Lippy. You know, you could just take that conversation and copy and paste it here. Just, you know, he hasn't seen as many innings this year, and the bus pulls up, and he was ready to get on, and look how he delivered. His team needs him. You've got a guy like Alisea, who's been a little banged up lately, so they're trying to limit innings here and there, whether it's a midweek or sometimes on a weekend. It's kind of just trying to limit his at bats and opportunities. So you've got a guy that steps up, and we don't miss a beat. So exciting to see that. The team was kind of off for the races. I don't know if Coach Mack with the Derbies coming up, that's kind of been his theme, is like, we're just going to run. They did the same thing again tonight, stole 8 bases as a team. Lucas Moore had 4 of them. Again, just all over the place. He was 2 for 3 tonight, scored 4 runs, 2 walks. He's the type of guy that he's hitting, 382, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I looked at it after the game tonight. If you've got a guy that can steal bases like Lucas and he's hitting 382, but you walk him twice, forget about it. Like he's a guy you can't walk him, because he's going to punish you if he gets on via the hit. If you walk him, it's over with. But just he continues to beat that dude. Defensively didn't play super clean tonight. Made 3 errors. The focus didn't look like it was quite there maybe at all times. But it's one of those games like we talked about. You come from, NC State and Western and Kentucky a couple times, and Clemson and Florida State, and you get to EKU, who's 8-36 coming into the game, and it's like, man, like you just kind of take a deep breath, and it's like, finally, like, somebody that and not to take away from EKU, but the EKUs and Florida States, they're in a different class. But the team, they probably just kind of take a deep breath and like, okay, we can we don't have to be on every single pitch of every single inning. Coaching staff obviously can't say that, but it's probably easy to do if you're a player. We've been athletes before, and you know who the opposition are, and sometimes you can take this pitch off or that pitch off, and we saw a little bit of that tonight, I think, probably. But nonetheless, Louisville takes care of business like they should against a team like Eastern, and they won 11-5. I know you talked about cuts a little bit and the staff. I'll let you kind of talk about what you saw out there at Patterson tonight.
Yeah, much like you just said, I don't care if you're, whatever high school sport you play, but if you played sports really at any level, you probably had an opponent at some point that, like you mentioned, you just kind of know, oh, I don't need my best probably to beat these guys. And that is often how you find yourself in a tricky spot halfway or, at the end of the third quarter or something like that, depending on what the sport is. So Dan mentioned that was kind of how he saw it today. I mean, he was not real pleased with the way the game was pitched for the most part. Just wasn't clean. Most of the innings were not very clean. A lot of walks, some wild pitches here or there, allowing, just that's the thing. You can't, the wild pitches, you walk a guy, all of a sudden you walk another guy, a wild pitch and a base hit, and all of a sudden it's 2 runs. Mm-hmm. And they didn't even, of 1 hit, something like that. And I'm not saying that was exactly the situation today or anything, but I'm just giving an example of, how fast it can get there on you when you're just not quite locked in. And I think that's the main part about, when we're talking about first pitch strikes, working from ahead, let them hit it. Not let them get a hit, obviously, but look, he mentioned again tonight, you hit 3 doubles in a row off us, hat tip. Congratulations. You earned that. But you have to make them earn it. And I know Dan says that a lot, and it's coach speak and all these things. But it's the truth. You've got to have somebody else beat you. You can't let them beat you. And so, yeah, not the cleanest of days. You probably saw it coming. I mean, I think I did. I kind of thought this was going to be kind of a sleepy game. Didn't seem like there was a lot of juice in the ballpark. The weather wasn't great. Early afternoon, not a ton of people there. Even when it wasn't, once the rain cleared off, it was humid. It's just, again, the opponent, not the best opponent you're going to see the whole year. And probably if you caught them, on a lie detector, they would tell you some of them probably weren't as locked in as they should have been today. And that is contagious. And so, unfortunately, that does happen sometimes. But we had enough today. And, there were some dudes that showed up big time. I had mentioned Cuts. I think I had, and you mentioned Hot and him pulling. Yeah, I mean, exactly what I just said about Lippy. It's the same thing. I mean, he was in that role, right, where they're basically going every other day with Kamayu playing at second base. But one of my favorite things about Hot is just the way that he goes about his work, no matter where it is. A lot of the fall he played third base. Kind of trying to find some time, depending on the team. He'd play some third, play some short, second. I've seen him get work at first. Dan mentioned even today, I think he thought he was going to first. And then he obviously get the early pinch hits, and then he ends up going in there, and so you get to keep it the way it is. But, I'm always so happy for some of these guys. It's my favorite part about some of these midweeks against, and I don't mean to demean anybody, but against lesser opponents. I love to see some of these kids get at bats, get time in there that don't get as much run as some of the others. And sometimes you get to see who's next. What's this look like for next year? What does this look like in 2 years? Maybe you see a freshman that might, just hasn't gotten any time. But, for somebody like Hot, great confidence booster. The two bombs, look, I mean, he's not like this, massive, imposing guy, right? But, man, he got some pop in that bat. He hits for a good average. He's a clean fielder, wherever you want to stick him. I really like him, to be honest. I really like him, especially I like him up the middle. Not quite as quick, like at shortstop sometimes, but easily able to fill in. And so, man, got a good glove. I loved it from him today, and just really happy for him again. Schweitzer runs out there is good. You get to see some of these other guys run out there and get innings. You can see Aaron England popped out there. Murphy was out there again today. I love the toughness from Murphy. I mean, things are starting to unravel a little bit. The rain has come down. It was raining hard when he was out there, finishing off that first inning. And he gets the big strikeout, and, then we're off to the races after that. So, still some good performances today. Not their cleanest game for sure, but sometimes I think it's good, obviously better when you win a game like that, when you kind of sleepwalk through it a little bit. And, Dan's going to have their full attention. I mean, they were in the outfield a little longer than normal after a midweek W like that. So I know he was talking to him about it out there, and they'll be ready to go on Thursday night for sure.
Yeah, I'd much rather have this conversation where we win a midweek game like this over, a team that we should win or should beat, instead of sleepwalking into it and get beat. That's a much different conversation to have. So when you pull off a win, obviously you want to win every game you can. I do want to touch on this with RPI wise. I was looking at this earlier. So the way RPI works, it's a total point system for the whole year. It's every game you play, you gain points or lose points depending on if you win or lose. Louisville's RPI today, so you have direct impact games, which are the games that you play in. If Louisville won today, they still lost 34 RPI points. And I don't remember, I look at RPI all the time. I don't remember a gap like that for a win, seeing a negative 34 for a win I don't know if I ever remember that. So that's just kind of how these type of games can impact your RPI. But they're games you have to play. You got to play your in-state schools. But maybe Alabama A&M or Alabama, whoever we played a couple years ago when they came into town. But lost 34 RBI points tonight for that game.
Well, and that's why, I mean, I didn't really say this out loud too much, or I wouldn't tweet this, but I mean, that's, I'll be completely honest, I was kind of rooting for a rain out today just for that particular reason. just
Yep.
because a game like today is one that does you no good RPI wise. The only thing that can come out of today, I mean, again, you like to see some of these other guys get a play, but in terms of the impact, it was only negative because somebody could get hurt or you could lose the game and then it impacts you even worse. But I mean, yeah, there was no way this game was going to do anything positive for you metric wise. And that's why I've been the proponent for a long time of playing Bellarmine downtown, because that's another one of those games that does the exact same thing. It's one of those, the NCAA tries to crack down on this where they don't want teams to cancel games at the end of the year like this because they negatively affect their RPI, because that does happen. So that's why when I saw the weather like it was, kind of to myself, I was, kind of hoping for a rain out, maybe that, don't try too hard to play that game, but I'm sure they don't think about it that way. Or if they do, they wouldn't say it out loud. But the rain held off and they were able to play. But yeah, it's one of those that's just kind of the way the metrics are set up. It just doesn't do you any good. And like you said, everybody has them. I mean, there's in-state games that everybody has that negatively impact you. And look, you're still being negatively impacted for other teams from earlier in the year. Some other teams that have these high 200 RPIs that just. That's the way it goes. And again, everyone has them. So, when you look at scheduling, sometimes things, teams don't, pan out the way you thought that they might. And that's the way it goes. What if what if Western Michigan has injuries to their frontline pitchers like we have? Well, they're not going to have the depth that we have. And so, if they get some injuries to a couple frontline starters, well, I mean, they're in big trouble. And, then that affects our RPI. So that's just the way that it works. It's kind of goofy, but that was, I had my fingers crossed for a little more rain today for sure.
Well, then when it started raining in the first inning and they go into the delay, I was like, because like you said, not going to say anything out loud, but I'm like, if this thing gets canceled today, like, is it going to be that big of a deal? They go into the rain delay. I'm like, okay, maybe, pull up the radar. I'm like, what if we just go ahead and call this thing? But no, they got the game in, which is the right thing to do.
So I typically, like I said, I try to be there when BP starts about 2 hours and 10 minutes ahead of game time. And if I'm not there right then, I try to be there, at least maybe 15, 20 minutes after that, once they switch and let the starters begin to hit. And I didn't go that early today because, number one, it was raining, and number two, I was waiting at home thinking, like, if I stay, I don't want to be there and have them cancel it. So I was given it every opportunity for it to not go before I left, but it didn't work out that way.
Well, let's flip the script over to Notre Dame, because they are our next opponent who we're going to take on this weekend. So let's just kind of jump into what they've got going on. Notre Dame currently is 24-18. They're 10-14 in conference play, which those numbers are much better than they were a couple weeks ago. Notre Dame is playing their best baseball this season right now. Their RPIs improved dramatically. Since they're on the road, these are, as it seems right now, these are going to be 3 quad 1 games. So that's the good thing, that these are 3 quad 1 wins or quad win games if we win them. But they're also, on the flip side of that, they're playing as good as they played all season long. Now the competition in those games hasn't been as great. If you look at the games they've played against Clemson or Wake Forest or Florida State, they've won 6 ACC games in a row, but those were against California and Stanford. So not the top of the ACC, but still they're playing winning baseball. They won 8 in a row until they got beat against Purdue tonight. Shout out to Brandon Anderson. But if you look up and down their roster, they're offensively, they're not going to overpower you much. I mean, they're hitting 264 as a team, which is 223rd in the country. They strike out about 10 times a game, which is just an alarming number. And when you look at total strikeouts, they're at 390. Louisville's at 267. These were 4 Tuesday games. So, I mean, they're striking out just a ridiculous amount. So our pitchers have a big opportunity to go down there and, stack up some Ks while we're down there. Carson Tenney is kind of the dude in the lineup you got to look out for. He leads the team in most offensive categories: average, home runs, RBIs, total bases slugging, among others. So he's kind of the dude that's going to be there in the lineup. But on the mound is really where you have to worry about these guys. Offensively, I don't think they can quite score with us. But they do have a couple arms that you've got to look out for. Jack Riddell, he was just named ACC Pitcher of the Week, which when I saw that, I was like, well, that's hard to believe because I saw what Jamie Arnold did on Friday night. But nonetheless, he was named Pitcher of the Week. In his last almost 20 innings, he has given up 2 earned runs. So he's right now playing some really good baseball. Now, those 20 innings were against Boston College, Stanford, and California. So when you go back to, Wake Forest, he gave up 8 runs. Georgia Tech, he gave up 7 runs. Florida State, 4 runs. So, he's pitching to the competition, but still, the stuff is there. He struck out 12 this weekend against California to win ACC Pitcher of the Week honors. So he's a dude you got to look out for. I'm probably going to start the first game of the series. Then you've got Rory Fox, another guy. He's got a 3.30 ERA. When you've got a starting pitcher in your weekend rotation with a 3.30 ERA, and they've got a 2-3 record, that tells you more about the offense than it does about the pitcher, right? So I think just to sum them up, like they can pitch a little bit. They've got some guys on the mound, but I don't foresee them being able to score with Louisville long term over 27 innings this weekend.
Yeah, so when you take a look at the way the series stacks up, one of the things that I have really honed in on that Coach McDonald has really been talking about, especially in road series, is you've got to be able to get the starter out of the ball game. Mm-hmm. And so whether it's by extending at bats, you got to fight off some pitches, you got to get deep in counts, you got to take a pitch or two more than you might normally like to. I got no problem with Lucas Moore wanting to step up there and try and drill that first pitch fastball that everybody tries to throw him to start a baseball game. I mean, is someone going to learn, try to throw this kid something off speed? Because he is ready to roll when these games start. But, they've got to be able to get into these bullpens. And that's the key to the series for me is, can we chase these guys, starters, out of these games, early in the 5th, somewhere like that, and get in these bullpen, 4th inning, whatever it may be. Let's extend some at bats. Let's get these pitch counts up, and let's get into these bullpens where, they're not quite as good as what a couple of these frontline guys are. And to be honest, we've had trouble doing it a little bit. And so that's an area that I'm really looking for some improvement this weekend. I'm sure Coach McDonald's going to be talking to him about it. He's mentioned it, like I said, several times. They did a pretty good job against NC State, I thought. Getting to it, but that game was just, that Friday night was wild. Just the strike zone seemed tight, and they got to us too, right? So it was just kind of, and then it was just kind of a who's going to survive to the finish line, basically, type of a game. But, we weren't great with it at Virginia Tech, and even at Clemson, that wasn't really our strong suit. And so that's the key. That's the key to the weekend for me. Can we get to the bullpen and chase these starters out of there? Because I think once we get these starters out of there, I think it's on for real. And so, look, South Bend, Indiana, the armpit of America. If you're Catholic, I'm not sorry. I was going to say I'm sorry. I'm not. If you've ever been to South Bend and you enjoyed your time there, I mean, you probably, I was going to say you have dementia, but, there's something going on because there's nothing going on in South Bend. I think that's really my whole point. The weather's terrible. You got, I had to travel through South Bend to go back and forth, from college at times. And I mean, it could be sunny and 45 degrees on one side. You drive into South Bend, it's a whiteout snowstorm. You get on the other side and it's sunny and 45 again. The place is the pit. The ballpark is not great. I think it has, well, I was there 2 years ago. It had like a couple rows of actual seating behind home plate. The rest is bleachers. You want to go to just about any high school facility here in Louisville, and you will find a nicer scoreboard. That is for sure. But the weather is gonna be kind of high 50s. It looks like maybe low 60s. Some rain in the forecast, because of course. And you never know what's gonna happen up there. We've had, who knows? They cancel a game because it's windy. I just never know what's gonna happen up there at Notre Dame. Like I said, it's the armpit of America. 100%. I stand by that. I'm accepting any and all tweets and DMs back about that. I will not budge off of it. Place is terrible, and yeah, I hope we go up there and stick it to them for sure.
Well, I'm glad you get to go to one of your favorite cities in America this weekend. I hope you have a blast while you're up there. One thing I do want to touch on, you briefly mentioned this, but I want to make sure we talk about this, the schedule for this week, because it is changed. This is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday week. So, and 2 late games, Thursday at 7, Friday at 6:30, and then Saturday at 2:00. So, the Thursday game is the ACC network game. So that one will be on television. And the other 2, you have to stream them on the ACC network extra, but, 2 late games on Thursday, Friday, and then the midday on Saturday. So the only time I've been to Notre Dame actually was the Reggie Bonifant game, where we went up there and beat them. It's the only time I've ever been, and I think, like you said, I've been there one time. If I ever go back, it'll be for a sporting event. It won't be just because that's a destination place to go. But like we got there, and I think it rained the entire time, and then it didn't rain anymore after that. So it was just it was cold, it was nasty. It was Notre Dame. That's what it is. So hopefully go up there and win a couple. You brought up my favorite Notre Dame memory though, when Link Jarrett canceled the game because of wind. And my favorite part about the whole thing, in true Dame McDonald fashion, instead of playing because he canceled the game, we practiced on their field. So we were still able to hold a practice on their field but we couldn't play a game. So you can read between the lines on that one. So I don't think I'll ever forget how that went down. But I don't think the coaching staff was too excited. But nonetheless, he's down at Florida State now. He just took two more L's from us, so he can hold those also. But safe travels up to Notre Dame. It seems like you're pretty excited about it. So have a good time up there this weekend. I know you'll be covering all 3 games, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, covering everything that's going on, giving us post-game interviews with the coaches and players and all that good stuff. So before we sign off here, let us know where they can find all the content that you'll be posting this weekend in South Bend.
Yeah, you can find me on X. I think I continue to say Twitter a lot. But you can find me on X at InsideVilleBSB. Inside Louisville Baseball is what you look for on YouTube. And yeah, I mean, we'll get all the post game stuff. You want some updates from the games and things like that. I tweet things out at the end of half innings, and yeah, I mean, I am excited to go watch some baseball, but yeah, I'd rather do it someplace else for sure. But yeah, please, for anyone that does follow along, a sincere thank you. I really appreciate it, and again, just am always appreciative of the opportunity to hop on here with you, man, and talk some baseball on the Third and Central podcast for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely always a good time. Anytime I can talk baseball, especially Louisville baseball, it's a good evening, well spent. So appreciate everything and all the followers that listen along. You can find us on Twitter, obviously at Third Central Pod, posting updates and all that good stuff. Wherever you find us, our video or podcast, like us, share us, tweet us. If you have any questions you want us to talk about, send us anything. Heck, we love that stuff, so we try to incorporate as much of that as we can in here as well.
And sincerely, thank you to all the people that like kind of stop me at games and things like that and just, say that they enjoy listening, or I mean, even if you're lying, just thanks for saying that you enjoy listening. And I've met some people from, kind of all different parts of the country who have let me know that, oh, they pop in here for a series, or it's not all just the kids' parents and things. So I mean, I appreciate anybody who is willing to take the time and stop and just say that they listen and things like that. That means a lot. So that's always really appreciated. Thank you.
No, definitely. I think anytime we hear that information, it just it's good. I know we have a really niche product of Louisville baseball. There's not a ton of following out there, but if we can just reach more and more every year, that's the goal. These boys deserve it. They deserve all the following and the fans at the stadium. Which one more reminder, packed Jim Patterson Stadium, especially next Tuesday night against Vandy. That it's going to be a big one. But we got Notre Dame first. We got 3 big games this weekend: Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We'll be back next week to talk about it and talk about how the Cards fared, or the Cards fared up in South Bend. So in the meantime, in the words of Sean Moth, we will see you at the ballpark.